1MDB has sparked embezzlement and money laundering investigations across
one of the
at least
biggest
10
corruption
countries.
scandals the world has ever seen.
What may be the biggest financial scam in history.
A number of corrupt 1MDB officials treated this public trust as a personal bank account.
Follow us as we bring you into the courtroom where the biggest financial scandal in Malaysian history is being heard. By the Malaysian Insight, this is the Najib Razak 1MDB trial, and I'm Patrick Teo. Najib had the final say over all of 1MDB's decisions, the witness said today. His power, Shahrol Halmi testified, came from his positions as Prime Minister, Finance Minister and Chairman of the board. Listen on as we bring you through how TIA became 1MDB after a royal disagreement. At 10 a.m., Judge Colin Sequeira emerged from his chambers and the 11th day of former Prime Minister Najib Razak's 1MDB trial began. The judge is a stern-looking man with salt and pepper hair and wears rimless glasses. His first order of business was to ask defense lawyers when they wanted to make the application on hearsay on Shahrol Halmi's testimony, as well as the testimony given by Amhari Nazaruddin, who was the witness before him. Najib's lead counsel, Shafi Abdullah, said he would do it immediately and proceeded to take the court through his 2-volume submission. Shahrol and Amhari's testimonies about Joe Low cannot be submitted as evidence, Shafi said. The businessman is still in the wind and therefore cannot be called in to corroborate the witness's claims. The lawyer submitted that Joe could still be controlling the situation, including manipulating this witness and the true situation at TIA and 1MDB. Shafi was referring to Shahrol's previous description of Joe as a master manipulator. Why should we take anything that the witness says about what Joe said as the truth? He asked. Prosecutor Gopal Sriram took his turn. Najib's defense is that he was misled by Joe Low, he said. Therefore, it is up to the prosecution to show whether he was misled by Joe or not. Sriram pointed out that Amhari had also testified that Najib did not appear surprised when he was informed of Joe's instructions. It was as though he already knew. This is relevant evidence, albeit circumstantial, as the 1MDB case was unique, the prosecutor said. This is because the accused is no ordinary person, Sriram said. Najib was, at the time, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, the most powerful individual in the country. Judge Colin said he would consider submissions from both sides and announce his decision at the end of the prosecution's case. Shahrol Halmi returned to the stand and took his oath. Just a quick recap. Yesterday, he told the court that he felt pressured to raise 5 billion ringgit in Islamic bonds for TIA. He was only 4 days into the job as TIA's new CEO, and at the time, the company only had 2 ringgit to its name. On May 14, 2009, TIA wrote a proposal to the Treasury for the bonds and requested for a government guarantee. The guarantee was given the very next day and was facilitated by AmBank and a private law firm called Shern Delamore and Company. Sriram asked why a private firm was used to prepare the guarantee when it was given by the federal government. It was for speed, Shahrol said. He recalled that his team was working frantically at super speed because there was an urgency to prove to shareholders that TIA could be trusted. When it started, TIA was only worth 2 ringgit. It did not have the 70,000 ringgit needed to meet the requirements for the issuance of the Islamic bonds. Just like many of the witnesses in the SRC International trial had testified, Joe Low was Mr. Fix-It, and TIA turned to him. A cash deposit of 70,000 ringgit appeared in my bank account the day after we notified Joe, Shahrol told the court today. He then passed the money to TIA in the form of a director's loan and was paid back when the company made proceeds through the bonds issuance. "What did you do with the money?" Sriram asked. Shahrol replied, "I told Joe I had his money and wanted to return it, but he kept saying, 'Later, later.' Eventually, I stopped and gave the money to charity. Which charities? The prosecutor pressed. Shahrol said one that he could remember was sponsoring orphans to watch a musical performance of the children's cartoon Upin dan Ipin at Istana Budaya. Just when everything seemed to be moving full speed ahead for TIA, suspicions arose from the royal family of Terengganu, and this threw a wrench into the works. It became, in a manner of speaking, a royal mess. On May 17, 2009, Tunku Rahimah Sultan Mahmud, who is the sister of Terengganu's Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin, was appointed TIA's director. Now, if you remember, yesterday Shahrol testified that TIA was Sultan Mizan's brainchild, and he had set it up 3 months earlier in February 2009. Sultan Mizan was also at the time the Agong, or King of Malaysia. On May 22, 2009, a director's resolution was issued. Tunku Rahimah had ordered the issuance of the bonds to be suspended. Shahrol said he was summoned to the Terengganu Palace. There, Sultan Mizan told him, quote, "Please sign the resolution. You can read it if you want," unquote. Sultan Mizan seemed angry, the witness said, and had used the term unsavory character. But Shahrol didn't know who he was referring to. After leaving the palace, Shahrol called Joe Low, who told him to make his way to Najib's home in Langkat Duta, Kuala Lumpur. When Shahrol arrived at Najib's house at about 9 p.m. that same night, Joe was already there. The former PM asked the witness to explain what happened at the Terengganu Palace. After briefing him, Shahrol recalled that Najib calmly told him to go ahead with the bond's issuance and said that he will meet with the Agong personally to discuss the matter. The ex-PM only had one question, Shahrol said. He asked why the Agong was upset. The witness said he didn't know. He left Najib's house shortly after, but Joe stayed back. TIA proceeded with the bonds issuance. Although they were valued at 5 billion ringgit, they were sold at a discount on May 26, 2009 for 4.369 billion ringgit. Shahrol said he only found out who bought the bonds in 2018. It was 2 companies, one based in Singapore and another in Hong Kong. The next day, on May 27, 2009, Sultan Mizan's sister Tunku Rahimah tendered her resignation as TIA's director. And then, under Najib's instructions, the company changed hands. It now belonged to the federal government of Malaysia. Najib immediately ordered a change in TIA's authorized signatories. Shahrol said he drafted the director's circular to change TIA's signatories with Joe's help from the businessman's bedroom at his luxurious 3 Kia Peng condominium in Kuala Lumpur. On July 12, 2009, with the approval of the Terengganu Palace, TIA formally came under the Minister of Finance Incorporated, or MOF Inc., of which Najib was the sole shareholder. On July 19, 2009, TIA sent a letter to Najib to suggest that it change its name to 1MDB. Shahrol said he was not involved in this, even though he was still the company's CEO. He said a new board of advisors was appointed for the newly named fund. The board was appointed by Joe after consulting Najib, and the chairman of the new board was Najib himself. Shahrol served as 1MDB CEO from 2009 to 2013. He said that in the early years, he would frequently double-check the instructions that came from Joe Low with Najib, and Najib would always confirm them. But in the later years, he rarely checked. For example, when 1MDB acquired 2 power plants in 2012, Shahrol said he didn't question the purchase. Ultimately, the witness said, Najib had the final say. As Prime Minister, Finance Minister and Chairman, he had ultimate power over all of the company's decisions. Shortly after, proceedings ended. The trial will continue tomorrow with Shahrol still on the stand. This podcast was brought to you by the Malaysian Insight. The team behind the Najib Razak 1MDB podcast are Revati Supramaniam, Yap Pek Kwan, Yvonne Lim, and Ravin Palanisamy. Alfian Zori and Beat Hong provided additional reporting. and I'm Patrick Teo.